What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing 3 basses you should know in dubstep. I recently did a poll on my community tab and I asked what content would you engage with most of my channel. Most people did sound design, how I made a certain bass. I thought, hey, what's better than one bass? Let's do 3. And then the follow-up video was, if I'm doing a bass tutorial, what would you like to see? And most people, 85%, said how to use the patch, like variations and a drop. So not only am I going to show you the patch, but how to change it up, utilize it in the drop as well. The 3 basses are going to be your typical sustain. We're going to have a growler, and we're going to have like a rhythmic kind of bro step-ish bass in general. So I'm going to show you drop now, and then we'll dive into it. Alright, so our first patch is Whey Sustain Deca. It's one of my patches from my ROID Rage sample pack that just dropped a couple days ago. As you see, there's tons of basses, effects, leads, a couple sustains in here. This is just going to be a quick plug to my pack that I have over 250 samples in my ROID Rage sample pack. They're all very nicely filled. Tons of variety in here. You have plenty of options there. Drums, you have tons of kicks, snares, claps, you know, full stuff. SFX, you have back effects, impacts, resampled, risers. You have some synths, you have some vocals, and you have some secret stuff in there as well. That plus, not this project file, but another one called My Style, which will be coming out here shortly. A slight breakdown of that. You'll get that whole Ableton 11 project file and the Ableton 11 template as well that will help you write bangers extremely quick. You can grab that down in the description below, which will get you access to all the sounds we are going over here, and you can get yourself 20% off by just typing in YouTube 20 down below. Thank you for checking it out if you do, and now we're going to dive back in this video. So we're here at Whey Sustain Deca. Now how this patch works is pretty simple. It's just one LFO, a simple rise, like a typical, you know, sustain riser here. It's going on the levels, it's going on the cutoff, frequency, by itself with no processing, just a clipper on it. It sounds like this. Let's see what we have here. We also have hyper. So that's adding the difference in tone there. We have combs as well. Just moving a very slight bit. I believe that's just with the cutoff here. Distortion, of course, tube. A little bit of delay, which is going to be from delay width here, just adding, making it a little bit wider, and then we're compressing everything together and then making a slight tad bit wider with chorus here. So the patch is pretty simple. We're just FM from being it from this deep house pluck to a simple super saw, and then I'm also having a sub that actually is playing on its own. Nice thing about this patch is you have variety with like most of my patches. Now, the big thing about this is it sounds really cool and we could play with little things here and there, but I wanted to change the tone slightly to make this. So I added a fat rack, which just so this is like Ray Volpe's fat rack from years ago. It's just reduce ambient, OTT. We're doing a lot here to the mids. I wanted a very specific tone. So what I'm doing here is I'm peaking this notch right here, which let's just cut down on all this other stuff real quick. So I don't want to mess with my lows because I'm keeping my sub for this, but I do want to create a tone. So when I have this off once again with it, I wanted that very specific kind of low mid tone, and then from there add a little more OTT. So thicken it up a little bit, and then this is where we start getting this fun tonal stuff, which you know I'm a hybrid reverb person, and mixing it in quite a bit wet we're using a NASCO sustain bass to actually be the impulse response here. Sounds like this. And that's giving it kind of metallic kind of being OTT'd and saturated. And this should honestly, if we're looking at if we want to clean this up, should be cut off at the 150. And then our sub isn't getting affected by this because our lows is just really simple EQ, compression, and then an impulse response. And you'll see that that's really just holding out the notes through this process. I'll run through this first bit. I just printed it down here because with the hybrid reverb, you have to be careful. You can actually get a tail. That's why it's printed, because I don't like that tail. And then I did just layer it with a NASCO sustain bass, which just adds like more of the tone together. It's pushed back so you don't hear it up front as much, but it does make it sound a little bit fuller. Bass 2 is going to be our growler here. This is also from my pack. It's called Whey Bass Mid Rager. Is being extremely distorted right now. 4-band OTT and a VR fat rack. So without all that, and here the patch is once again honestly pretty different. We have a custom wavetable and then just one I have going into a band notch, which is doing quite a bit. We have bin being from this LFO. I like the LFO2 in these circumstances to be the like tone, so I can shape it. So that's why I like to do that. You can play it with this bin if you wanted to, but that's being affected by the first one. Now we just have some noise, sub, typical movement with our LFO1. We're once again having hyper. We're using all pass. Sounds like this without it. Adds more mid width. EQ adding more vowel movement. Distorting all that after. So you could actually distort this before, but it sounds different. Doesn't have the same amount of movement. Chorus, doing chorus, adding width. Delay, adding width. Compression, and then adding a little reverb. So without the chorus, not too much delay. It's actually adding quite a decent amount, and without the reverb. Now, the fun thing about this is you can change things. Like, I'm messing with the pitch bend here. This is something I like to do with a lot of my chugs. It's only +2, -2. Sometimes I go to 5, sometimes I go to 7, but I'll usually change it on these fills. See here, and then this one is actually just an octave lower. You can do all this certain stuff. Like I said, all I'm doing really here is just adding fat rack. So it's very simple. Having a good patch allows you to mess with a lot. And of course, you can play with more of this. If you want to change the sound, you could put your macros on your wavetables and whatnot and change that. So if you want to change that a little bit, same with over here. You can change so many different things. Just stay creative with it overall. Finally, one of my favorites, Moonshot. Sounds like this. So a lot of versatility, and when a lot of people ask, like, how do I use and diversify my patches, this is a good way how. You can see that I'm playing with pitch bend, LFO change. We can go over the processing here in a little bit. For the most part, you're having sync being played with LFO1. We're having our main, like, LFO. This is obviously going to mess our tone with the sync. This is obviously going to be our movement. Next, we have the cutoff, and then likewise, we have one filter being messed with by 3, and then one filter being messed with by 4 here, just slightly offsetting it. And then, of course, we have our EQ here, acting as almost like slope, so we're opening it up. Otherwise, you're getting that really, really high end. And it works phenomenal. We also do have reverb and delay built in. Chorus and adding width, and same thing with the dimension here. We have tube distortion. We can also play with the macros here. Once again, we have the sub oscillator. LFO change just makes it quicker. Deeper is going to be our macro 2, so you'll see that if I... And then, of course, tone changer. And you can see that our macro 3 is going to be affecting the frequency of the filter here. So we're just going to move this up a little more. It's really, really kind of cool stuff. This is probably the most advanced patch out of all three. And then, of course, you can pitch bend as well, which, as you know, I'm a big pitch bender. Kind of builds that ramp. This in the first drop doing different things, and we're changing it with LFO. We have a quarter note jab here. And then just playing with our patch, like the actual MIDI here, allows for different rhythms. Because if we just had that like a regular MIDI, like so, if I would just do this, doesn't sound the same. You can play with different lengths and it gets you different tones. If you saw my dubstep resampling video I just published, I kind of explain how this actually creates this kind of tone and response in a patch. So you can go check that out. But you can take this a bit further and in the second drop, just keep a very steady rhythm and make it like super heavy, like a Lost Lands vibe, like this. Initiates wars. You really have limitless stuff you can do with a patch if you're just willing to get creative. Obviously, this is just the same. If you look here, this is just same pattern repeating, and I'm just putting other stuff underneath it and carrying it with it. I think this video has probably gone on long enough. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I hope this helps you understand, and feel free to check out ROID Rage as you can get all these sounds to help complement your own style. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.